All right. Last week we talked about you getting a big wholesale order, and one of your bottlenecks that became apparent was the wash pack. You never had thrown a lot of volume at it, 45 pounds of greens all of a sudden at once going through it. What were some of the limiting factors in that system when all the greens came in?
Two words, salad spinner. That was the biggest thing. I mean, I could throw, um, you know, man, like 15 pounds of greens into the bubbler. It's like a 50, 55 gallon like tote, that I'm using. And so like that was good. That seemed, and that's relatively easy to get in and out of there. I could definitely use some more space for like drying, kind of like hardware cloth tables with fans. But man, just rocking a 5 gallon restaurant grade salad spinner, and it's like for every, let's say, every 10-pound load of greens that go into the bubbler, that's like 6 or 7 salad spinner loads,
Is that one of those
and
orange ones?
yeah, like um, hand operated one. And so it's just like, yeah, you just see like you're just standing there forever, just cranking that thing, just like, all right, I think we got all the water out, and then, dump it, and then boom, you're on to the next one. Um, and so yeah, thankfully, I mean, it's kind of a bittersweet thing, but it's like our washing machine's starting to crap out on us. So I'm like, all right, this is, it's about time to just bite the bullet, buy a new one, and tear that thing apart and turn it into a big salad spinner.
Yeah, because at some point, right? Like throughout the season, what do you anticipate greens harvested per week will be in terms of poundage? Is it going to be in that 45 range?
Probably, like consistently. Yeah.
Yeah, so
And
you're going to
so,
have this again. So it's you and Orange Bucket are going to become really good friends, or
yeah,
one arm's going to get really
definitely.
strong.
Yeah, for sure. Or I need to teach my 4-year-old how to use the salad spinner.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I mean, the good thing about a spinner though is like that's a if you acquire the washing machine, like that's the tricky part. There's the time and effort into doing the conversion, but relatively cheap versus you buy a commercial one, they're like 5 grand. You're not going
Yeah.
to get that much into it. So definitely a possibility to upgrade that. What about the rest of the system? Did you have to refrigerate this stuff at all?
Yeah, so thankfully, from my experience, a lot of like, especially like the bok choy and stuff, it can hang out in the cooler for a while. Like some of it I had harvested, like almost a week before, and it was still really solid. But everything else, it pretty much was like harvest it on Wednesday and leave it at the farm, come pick it up Thursday morning, and then take it, and then it goes on delivery. And so, it did at least sit overnight. Yeah, and I just I've got one like restaurant size refrigerator that's just like top to bottom open, nothing else in there. And then I've got three like residential, freezer on top, fridge on bottom. And I just like rip all the shelves out and just stack as many totes in there as I can.
So would 45 pounds fit into all of that?
Oh yeah, I got, so it was 6 totes in total, like 5 full ones, which really I probably could have compressed it down a little bit more and got it into 4 or 5 if I really, and I just wanted to be extra delicate with this first one. It's like sometimes I feel like Crystal Organic, we just like, all right, just get it in there. Like, oh, it can hold 10, let's get 15, just because it's one less thing to have to move. Um, and so I probably could have gotten most of it in the one big refrigerator, but I ended up getting it in two. So it worked out perfectly fine. But if I'm doing that every week combined with, you know, like if we're doing bags of salad mix or bags of greens mix, like takes up more volume, and then you combine it with all the other stuff, like yeah, it's gonna be a little tight.
How are you going to approach upgrading the wash pack? Is it triage as needed?
Yeah, it's gonna be like, all right, let's think really long and hard about what desperately needs to be in cold storage and what can handle it, versus like what what do we really need to harvest like ahead of time, and that can handle maybe, maybe a little bit of time before it goes into cold storage versus like we just don't have room. We have to harvest this like Friday night or Friday afternoon and do that. And so it'll be that and then it's going to be just like trying to keep an eye out for whether it's like foam insulation boards or um because we're out here kind of in the sticks, there's a ton of hunters. There's always like walk-in coolers for sale. And so it may just be like keeping a finger on the pulse, checking Facebook Marketplace and seeing a decent like deer cooler that someone's getting rid of, and just like jump at it and just say like hope we can hope we can pay it off, or like hope we can recoup the cost fast enough to justify it. Because I already have the window unit to do a cool bot, and I either need to buy a cool bot or sort of like rig one with like the timer temperature things, which I've looked up some stuff. I don't know if I want to do that, but that's sort of the plan.
Is building the walk-in, is it more hold off because of finances or hold off because it's also a lot of time to make that? Or is it option three, like you got to build a room, or and then it's like, well, who owns the room, which we talked about in a previous episode, or you got to put it on a trailer and then like you got to acquire the trailer. Like what are the main factors holding you back from doing the walk-in?
It's a bit of all three. Obviously, finances is a big one. Because I could probably make it work, but then I'm like burning through capital. Um, and it's like, I might be cutting back on a load of compost or something to buy the cool, it's like, yeah, it's either a 24-yard load of compost to cover beds, and to suppress weeds, or it's a cool bot. And so it's like, all right, you got to pick one. And then yeah, also it's like, all right, I don't own this land, I don't own the barn. It's not very big. It's like I have enough for a tool shed to like hold all the tools and drip tape and all those extra stuff. And then I have like a barn that has the refrigerators, has our bathroom, has a desk, seed storage, kind of all the like ancillary, just having like a central place where you can like get out of the rain, do stuff, work on the computer, and so it's like there's not really another place to put it without taking away another space. And if I'm investing all this time and money into that, and then what am I going to like walk away with it and disassemble it and take it with me? Um, and so I would say, yeah, it's a combination of both like the permanence of it, the space, um, and then the actual like finances. Honestly, the time to build it is like been the one thing I haven't even really considered, to be honest with you. I've totally overlooked that.
How much of if something could save you a bunch of effort, headache, and frustration, are you willing to just gamble and say, I'll invest in it? And if I leave it behind, I'll leave it behind for the amount of time I'm here. It's saving me a headache.
Um, right now it would be hard to just make that gamble, but I think, once we really start like moving product through and we're harvesting a lot and selling it consistently, I would probably be more apt to do that. And yeah, and maybe try to make it modular. I like the trailer idea, um, but I would say, I've got a 3-year lease, so if I build it between now and summertime, I've still got 2.5 good years with it. If we leave, I might make them an offer on the property or just extend the lease, and maybe we end up using it for a long, long, long time. But I do think that it's one of those things that will probably be worth it to have in the long run.
Yeah. I mean, I've had to buy stuff where it's like I need this once, and like just the one time I need it, it's worth whatever I paid for it.
Yeah.
And even if I never use it again, like that just saved me a ton, or it made some job easier, safer, whatever it was. All right, now into the meat of today's episode: crop planting, or more vegetable crops. there's a lot of different ways people can go when they plant a farm in terms of what crops they want to grow. It could be, hey, these are the things I love to grow. The market could say, I don't care what you love to grow. We want these types of things. You might need to grow certain crops to fill out a CSA or round out a CSA basket. You're not in that case because you're going to be at the farmer's market. So when you think ahead for, the foreseeable future, what crops are the keystone crops in your crop plan?
Lettuce or salad mix in general, but definitely like lettuce being the base of that. Like you know, like cut and come again lettuce, like a Salanova lettuce. Um, arugula for sure. Probably baby root vegetables, whether it's beets and turnips. Um, and then I mean those are definitely the three. Oh, and then uh brassicas, like your collards, your kale, and then broccolini. Broccolini is like you would have to like fight me to not grow that. To say those are probably the things that will like be the backbone of our production and our sales, and we'll probably have those like throughout as much of the season as we can,
Why are we starting to fight over broccolini?
just because it's so stinking good. And um, the variety that I have, it's one from Johnny's that's like specifically grown. It's a broccoli specifically for side shoot production. And it's just, it just puts out for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. Um, and so it's not just like all this space and all this time for one big head of broccoli. It really you can really stretch out that kind of yield per bed, and it's just unique enough that it's like you can charge a premium for it. It's not broccoli that everyone can get at the grocery store that you just like steam and then eat it like however. Like it feels like a premium product. It looks like a premium product. It tastes like one. Um, and up until this point, like so I just started harvesting it this week and I sold every single bunch that I could possibly harvest, you know.
Are any of these crops, shockers to the system? It's Nirvana coming into the music scene at the end of the glam rock 80s. So any
Um,
of these crops going to be like, oh my God, what is this? It's like Elvis.
I think with the people that I'm selling to and kind of at this market, I think the broccolini might be the only thing that's like new. I mean, salad mix is salad mix. It's insanely good salad mix, but at the end of the day, it's like it's not that much different than what you can get at the grocery store. Other people sell hackeri turnips. They're super.
Hey, totally lost sound there. Edit. Hello, test, test. No, nothing. I'm just making a note here. Edit this.
Hold
Maybe, maybe.
on, I just unplugged it, and you
A
got
little
me.
bit. Keep talking for a second.
I'm still talking. You got me.
Okay, I got you now. Okay.
Okay.
So the last thing I heard was some people sell Hackerite turnips. So we'll edit
Okay.
that part out.
Okay. Um, Yeah, so some people sell the hacker returns. It's not a super new thing. It probably will be somewhat new for a lot of customers, but it's not that much different than a regular turnip. But man, I mean that broccolini is special because I think it's something that people know about. They see it, but most people don't gravitate towards it because it's just like when you see it next to a big, huge head of broccoli, it's kind of like, why would I buy this little bunch of something for $5 when I get like a whole head for $1 or $2 or whatever? But then they try it and I think, yeah, like I doubled my planting for what I initially did. And I'm thinking about doing a third planting just to keep up with what I'm anticipating the demand might be.
So the initial farmers market booth when it rolls out, salad mix, root veg, broccolini. Um, there'd be some maybe some brassicas in there, collards, kale,
Mhm.
carrots.
Yeah, carrots for sure. That's been the one thing that has been so far germination's been really good. I mean, they're still pretty small right now, trying to get them ready for market. So I have a little bit of lead time, but carrots have been hard to germinate well. Um, but I'm hoping that that'll be a good seller. The difference between like a grocery store carrot and a fresh market carrot, especially one that's been like grown, had some cold temperatures on it. I mean, you can't beat it. So I think that'll be another big one that, yeah, that kind of falls into that kind of baby root veg category.
Is that it? Do you think that that's like the limit of the crops you're starting with and then see where it goes? Or do you see adding on anything? Is there anything else in the plans like written in permanent marker? Like we're doing this?
I mean, I think the Asian greens, I think especially like the bok choy, I think that's going to be a pretty, I don't know if it would be like as big as the other stuff will be, but I think it'll be a consistent seller that as people try it, they'll kind of keep coming back for it. That and yeah, I think just the greens mixes in general.
So no tomatoes, no cucumbers, no peppers, none of that.
I mean, not in April. I mean,
I
well,
mean,
that
like,
stuff.
do you even see that stuff over the summer coming
Oh,
in?
oh,
Or
gotcha. Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'll do some greenhouse tomatoes and yeah, like a big bullhorn pepper and maybe a just like kind of basic tomato pepper and then eggplant. I think doing like a, a Chinese or Japanese, can't remember which one it is, but kind of like the long, slender eggplant. I had some good success with that last year, and people really like it. And then we're in the South. Everybody loves okra, and it grows like a stinking weed. And I think the variety I have is really good.
what do
And
people
then
do with all this okra down there?
I mean, everybody fries it. You just bread it and fry it. A lot of soups like a jambalaya, that sort of stuff. I mean, that's kind of the two main ways that we eat it. And there's probably other ways that are really great that I would love to try, but pretty much, or then pickled okra. Like those are kind of the three staples, I would say. Not to speak for the whole South, but fried okra, pickled okra, and then like in a stew.
And we're missing out. Does not exist out here. I
Dude,
cannot find it anywhere.
people love okra, and you can never sell enough of it.
I
And
think,
then, oh, go ahead.
I mean, I'm going back a couple episodes. Maybe I'm wrong. I think you said Crystal Organic only does single cut greens. Is that correct?
Yeah,
What? Okay, so you've worked at a farm that only does single cut. You've brought up cut and come again a couple times, multi cut. Why are you looking at multi cut versus single cutting greens?
I think at the end of the day, I think a lot of it just boils down to space. You know, like you know, they can seed a bed of arugula every week until the cows come home, more or less. Obviously, it takes a little bit more timing than that. But it's like I've only got so many beds, especially right now. I've only got so many beds, and and so I think some of it just comes down to it's like, is the second harvest or the third harvest worth it if you can just like get it out of the ground and you already have the next bed ready for the next week to just do the same thing, and then boom, then we can get another thing. And so I think for me, it just boils down to space. Um, and it kind of boils down to, um, you know, they do a lot of head lettuce, like almost exclusively. We do some salad mix, for like the local people that are buying retail, but because they don't sell at a farmer's market anymore, I think he's pivoted to just like people just want head lettuce, and it's just so easy. Just go, cut it out at the base, pull off kind of the bottom leaves that are a little bad, maybe give them a little dip or a little rinse just to get the any field stuff off of it, and then boom, you're done. So yeah, it mostly just comes down to space, I would say.
Come summer, what's DTM on arugula down there? Like 30 days?
Yeah, like probably 30, 40. It's pretty
Okay.
quick.
So if you need, if you're, let's just say 30 for the sake of argument. Let's go down the high end 40. Direct seeded, 40 days you harvest a bed, 100% yield. So you get it all. If you turn that bed over, you're not getting another 100% yield for 40 days. So in
Hmm.
80 days, you get, we'll call it 200 units of harvest. How big do you need harvest or second cut? Let's say you didn't after 40 days, you harvest first bed, so you get your 100 units. How many days to second cut, and what percentage do you think you're going to get of reduction based on the first harvest? So if first harvest was 100, X days later, you're going to get some amount less than 100 because it's probably not going to grow back as totally as full. What do you think that looks like?
You know, from what I've seen so far, from kind of the first few plantings of it, um, I don't know if I could give you like a, okay, so if you get 100 units, the next cut, you're getting a 50% reduction or, you're only getting a 30% reduction. I don't really know for sure. Um, but I mean, it's definitely a drop off. I would say probably somewhere in the neighborhood of, you're getting 50 to 70% of the initial harvest, and it's not quite as good because it's, at least with like the Astro that we're growing, it's like nice, big, smooth, spoon-shaped leaves, just super tender. And then kind of the next bit is more of your like kind of traditional sort of kind of like sawtooth shaped arugula leaf. And so, you know, that might be the one crop that maybe doesn't get a cut and come again. Maybe it is, it's just like get it and get it out. Um, but um, but I would say probably somewhere in the 50 to 70% range is I would be okay with that. And maybe that second cut exclusively goes to salad mix. So it's like I'm still getting a second cut, but because it's not just arugula presented by the bunch or by itself, it's just in a mix, we can justify having a slightly not as, you know, visually appealing product.
Right, because it becomes one component of inside a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah, and it still tastes just as good.
Any of those initial things, let's just forget the summer crops for now. If you look at the stuff April, May that you had, the salad mix, the brassicas, the root veg, the broccolini, comfort level of growing all those, are you like highly confident down to not confident? Where do you fall on the scale across the board? Are all those like high confident level crops in terms of your ability to grow them, do you think?
For the most part, yeah. I mean, none of those are hard things to grow. Like I said, the baby root stuff can be a little bit fussy with some germination. I mean, anytime you direct seed stuff, it can be a little fussy with germination, but taking some necessary steps with like misters to keep the soil moist, tarping carrots, things like that. Um, and but as far as like lettuce, it's all transplanted, so theoretically everything that goes in the ground, it's 100% because you can't transplant something that never germed. Um, and yeah, and so I'd say I'm fairly confident on all those things that I know how to grow them. They turn out consistently good. I know when to pick them so that they don't get too big or they don't get too fibrous or whatever.
What about come summer when things start getting hot and humid, greens down there? How's your confidence level there? I just know from talking to people like Ray, Tyler in the past, it's definitely a challenge for you guys in the South with all that hot weather. Some of these cooler season crops don't love it. There's obviously a lot of strategies, which Ray's done a lot talking about that to help grow. You have some of the more Batavian types that deal a little bit more with the heat. How do you feel about growing greens when it's going to be sweaty and hot down there?
Yeah, it definitely won't be as easy, hoping that with like, varieties like Muir, Magenta, things that are a little bit more. heat tolerant on the lettuce side. Um, and then with like come like middle of summer, like dead heat of summer, it might be kind of tough, for some of those things like, hacker eyes, arugula, those sort of things. But, it's like, but it also, germ will probably be way easier because the soil will be nice and warm. It'll just shoot up, um, you know, kind of some of maybe those like later spring carrots. Because, that's the one thing. It's like I'm seeing a lot of people that I don't know if I'd say they do carrots year round, but like they're doing carrots a lot. And here it's pretty much just like a fall planting of like at least what I'm experiencing down here. It's like a fall planting of carrots and that's it. Maybe you do a few beds. And so um, I'm really less concerned with the heat and more just because I think, with like shade cloth and like misting during the day, um, which if I haven't bought those things yet, I've already, have them like earmarked in my startup budget to buy like shade cloth. But it's more of like pests, like
Yeah.
what are the pests going to be like doing lettuce outside in the dead of summer? Like what are they going to get hammered with? What are the hacker eyes are going to get hammered with X, Y, or Z. White flies can be really bad down here in the middle of summer and can just wreak havoc on like a bed of hacker eyes or something.
Are there any common market garden crops? I'm not talking about crazy stuff that market gardeners would never grow, like, I don't know, quinoa and pumpkins and stuff like that. But are there any common crops that you already know? We're not growing this. I don't like growing it. I have trouble growing it. Whatever. I don't like it.
Um, trying to think. I feel like I've tried a lot of the stuff that I'm like, I don't even know what the heck that is. And then I grow it and I'm like the tatsoi. It's like,
Yeah.
like, oh, whatever. And then I grew it. I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. It grows so well. It comes back really well. And it's like, oh yeah, maybe I need to do this. I don't know, maybe something like kohlrabi. I feel like that's something that you see a lot of like farmers markets, kind of like high end stuff like that. I've got some growing out there. Um, but I'm not loving it. I don't know. I think it looks so weird and foreign to that like people that don't know what it is. It's gonna be a hard sell to get them to be like to pay for it and take it home and do it. It's easy when it's like, I have like a captive audience and you can just be like, hey man, you get a kohlrabi in your box for the next 3 weeks. Like
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
easy. But when you actually happen to like get people to buy it, I'd say that would probably be one that I probably won't. I'm trying it right now just to see, but I don't have big faith in that one.
Yeah, it's those vegetables you have to explain. Like you don't have to explain a
Exactly.
carrot, you don't have to explain a tomato, kohlrabi, fennel. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
you're gonna have to explain that to me in terms of how to eat it because I know what they are, but I don't eat them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like if it's like find the things that are like 1 degree different from what's in the grocery store, and those things kind of sell themselves.
Yeah, mind blown. Like, what is this alien planet thing? Looks like a ball.
Yeah,
Do I cook it? Do I cut it up? What do I do with this thing?
exactly.
What about on the flip side, crops that you maybe aren't a fit for market gardens or they're maybe on the fringe, but you're like, I want to grow this. I'm passionate about this thing. Um, there's a lot of people out there growing very boutique crops for restaurants and people. Well, like, is there something in your wheelhouse besides the broccolini that you're like I'm really passionate about this thing. Like I want to grow it because it's soul food for me.
Um, that's winter squash for me. It's right now I'm not like firing on all cylinders in the sense that it's like every square foot of something it like has to squeeze every last dollar it can out of it. And I've alluded to it multiple times of like my high rotation and low rotation plots, and so doing like a like I did like a red curry squash or a kabocha squash. And I grew those last year, really productive, comparatively speaking. And and they lasted forever. I sold my last ones 3 weeks ago, and so they've just chilled all winter long. Um, Zero cold storage, just in a crate in the barn. Um, and they're insanely delicious. They kind of almost get better as like those those carbohydrates convert into sugars as they sort of sit. And and people really seem to enjoy them. Like they really like them. They like being able to um make stuff, especially in the colder months. So I'm anticipating doing a lot of that come like late summer and fall, even if it's just to be able to harvest a ton of it and then set it up and then like slowly sell it throughout the fall and winter months and into early spring. I feel like that's definitely just because the amount of time it takes and like the yield per bed, it's probably not, not ideal compared to like Salanova lettuce, but they're just so stinking good to eat. They look really pretty and, a nice striking orange, like teardrop shaped squash on a market table in a sea of green, I feel like really stands out and looks really nice.
Is there one crop you want to be known for? Like this is the crop we own.
Not really. I just, I've never, yeah, I haven't really ever had the thought of like, we want to be the salad mix farm. I think we will be. Um, I think we'll be the like, yeah, you need to go get your greens from them, just because they're so good. Because I'm not like leaning so far into tomatoes and peppers and all the things that everyone else typically does around here that yeah, it's like I think even if it's not as sweet and as tender as it is right now, like even some like late spring, summer greens, early fall stuff, I think it'll be such a change of pace for people that it'll still be like, yeah, like I only buy my greens from you. So, maybe it'll be salad mix, maybe it'll be just sort of those greens in general. But I, I, I don't really care to stand out for much of anything else, really.
Are any of the crops will any of the crops make you stand out if you look at some of the other growers like our baby root veg, everybody has that, or is it the greens that will be the difference maker that of what you have, or is it the quality of the greens that'll make a difference? Like, do any of these crops, like, do you think going to be totally unique to you?
I think doing baby root stuff will be. Um, there's not really, from what I've seen, everybody has orange carrots that are like good size carrots for like making soup or just eating raw, but I'm not seeing a ton of like bunches of baby carrots or, kind of taking one out of Jody's playbook and doing like the mixed baby greens. Like I think that'll really stand out. Seeing a bag of like baby carrots or baby turnips and radishes or or beets and all that sort of thing. I think and then being able to consistently have that over a longer period of time, not just like, yeah, we have beets for a couple of weeks. It's like, well, if you don't want to just eat beets, maybe you would be more apt to buy a roasting mix that you can just kind of like you don't have to really find a beet recipe, but you can just sort of like salt, pepper, season, and throw them in the oven and just eat them. So I think those are the two things that will really set us apart.
What about tomatoes? I mean, that's a crop I think anywhere everybody grows. A lot of the differentiators with tomato growers in the market farming space is time of year, getting them early, really trying to get that advantage. If you grow tomatoes, how do you anticipate trying to differentiate? Is it growing more of the boutique tomatoes, not having the big heirlooms that a lot of people grow? What are you targeting there?
Um, if I had to lean one way, it would be more of sort of the boutique side, like a cherry tomato variety that no one else will have because, as of now, Crystal Organic is the only one that has it because he's been like saving seed from that for years. And he's like, yeah, grow it, sell it. It's great. And it's an amazing like plum grape tomato. Um, but I mean, it's not like striking. It's not, orange or yellow. I mean, it's just like a good, like kind of blush pink red tomato, but it tastes insane. Um, you know, and I'm growing some like greenhouse specific varieties this year, or I'm going to try to grow some that are like hybrids that look and are they're supposed to look and taste like heirlooms. Um, just because, you know, from what I've seen down here, with it being so hot and humid, trying to grow heirlooms like in a tunnel, it's just you can just get hammered with.
Right.
blight or whatever. And so honestly, the tomatoes are like, I'm gonna do it because it's like it's what you do. I don't feel any sort of like outside pressure to do. It's like everyone just thinks you have to do tomatoes. It's like because tomatoes taste awesome. It's like even if I just eat them all and the peppers, but more it'll be to sort of like fill out what we have. Growing varieties that I really believe in and really love, and then having that mostly for like our like non-farmers market retail that we're hoping to do some of too. I think that's probably where we'll end up selling most of them because there are some people who are like dedicated to growing peppers and tomatoes at this market. Like one lady that's like harvesting tomatoes now, like she has greenhouses and
Wow. Okay.
she has like nailed it in. And so, um, yeah, it's going to be sort of more like just to fill out what we're already doing.
What do you want people to say when they come up to your booth? Like, is there some thought of how you stand out, how you don't blend in? And I don't necessarily mean the presentation of your booth or things you'll do to draw people in or your story, but is it, wow, like we've never seen this here? Or is it the visible quality? Like, I'm just thinking that a lot of farmers market is it's the visual that gets people in. And I know we can talk about displays, forever. Um, but it's also people seeing things maybe they're not used to seeing. What are your thoughts on if somebody's going around the market? Is it, do you want to be known for? I know you said you haven't really thought too much about this, but is it flavor? Is it some of these unique things? What does separate you?
I definitely think flavor, I've put a lot of, and I think texture kind of falls within that, just sort of like overall eating experience, I guess. I put a lot of thought into the varieties that I'm growing. Um, Thankfully, most of them also are like super productive. So, that's a big part of it. But, like I would love to hear the like, oh, your crop culture. Yeah, like our friends have been raving about your X, Y, or Z or whatever. Um, but I would say just being like I think the strikingness of seeing like fresh greens and like bagged greens that people can literally like buy and theoretically like put dressing in a bag and just eat it right there in front of me. I think that'll really be like a big, it's not going to be like baskets full of produce. It's not going to be like baskets full of tomatoes or baskets full of, you know, I don't know, some lettuce heads or whatever. It's going to be like these like big sort of like over like overflowing displays of just like really crisp, lush, dark green, greens that and I think that'll kind of sell itself. I hope.
Based on what you've sold so far off the farm, has there been any crops that you've maybe have surprised you how well they've resonated with customers?
The Hackerite turnips. Like I know how good they are. Um, but it's just kind of like I don't know. I feel like turnips are like a classic sort of like Southern food, but that's like your standard like purple top. You roast them, boil them, mash them, whatever. But it's like selling these, and I call them salad turnips to try to like invoke the sense of like cut them up, eat them raw, that sort of thing. That's been the one thing that I thought I would have to like sell them, like have to really like explain to people what they are. And whether it's just because people are eager or they know what they are, or just naming them salad turnips has sort of done that part for me. It's just like I kind of just list it and no one ever asks any questions and people just buy it. And so I thought it would take a lot more uphill battle to like educate my customers on what that was, but they're loving it.
When you look at volume at the end of the day, is it greens that'll be the biggest volume mover you think off the farm, just in terms of bed space, occupied, all
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, I mean just because they do take up, like just in like literal sheer volume, and then also in like profit, because like I'm not charging $13 a pound for kale, but I am for salad mix. And so yeah, I think that'll be the biggest both in like revenue generator um, and like overall volume will probably be like the cut greens.
How many? So we're recording this mid February. How many weeks are you out to, or when is your market start?
April 6th.
Okay, so you're about 2 months roughly out.
Yeah.
So stuff has got to go into the ground in March for that, or do you? So some of it's already in now, the broccolini, or
Yeah, I mean a lot of a lot of it's already in, things like beets or like the initial beets are already in. Pretty sure. Obviously it's growing in winter, and like we've talked about with like crop timing and stuff, this is all a little new for me. So it's like some stuff will probably come ready maybe earlier than I anticipate, some stuff maybe later, but for the most part, what I'm seeding now, whether it's like seeding it in the seed house or transplanting out now, is what's going to be harvestable come at least those first couple of markets. God, I hope.
right, right, because you want to hit that market full speed ahead, right? Like with as much as you can to offer to, because essentially your first face at the market, right? Like you're
Yeah,
here, I'm
yeah, I
coming
would.
with it, everything.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if I would go like full bore, like, all right, if I bring all this and I sell out, that's $1,000, because it's first market. It's a little earlier than the other markets, so maybe I'll come in with a little bit less. But for the most part, like, yeah, like I want it to look just about as full and as good as what it could look in the middle of May or June.
Any between now and then, any worries on what might hit the fan to prevent crop or some yield from hitting the market stand? Is it weather the big worry between now and then? Is it stuff not sizing up fast enough? Because you talked a lot about timing. We're getting days are getting longer, but days are still short. It's still relatively cool.
Yeah, I
Um,
would I would say primarily it's timing. It's sort of the fear that we're going to run into the same thing we had with the Asian greens, where it's like I grow a ton of it and then realize it's ready way too soon. And it's like I, it's because like especially with lettuce, like I already have a bunch of lettuce in the tunnel that it's like, dude, like I can keep picking this, but it's not ideal for like mix. It's kind of like it's a little too big. Um, so that's probably number one. And then also there's always the fear. Like I have now outgrown my number of row covers. So like when we had our big freeze and hit single digits for a moment, or in the teens back, I don't know, a month ago, I had enough row covers to cover all of my crops. So everything got at least one cover on it. I am now um, I'm now surpassed that. So that means that decisions are going to have to get made. It's like, all right, so do we cover the broccolini and, hopes that those little florets stay nice and good and don't get burned if it gets super cold again? Or do we cover the lettuce in hopes that, it doesn't, and so we're now in a point now where it's like, I'm going to have to pick and choose what gets covered and what doesn't, and hope that it doesn't get too cold, which the likelihood of it getting down to those temperatures at this point is probably slim. But, you know, we down here, we got hammered with like a mid-March freeze that really, really took out a lot of stuff, mostly like fruit trees and things that had already bloomed and were budding out. Um, but it's definitely possible and it happens. It happened last year and it could really throw a wrench in our whole plan.
if we fast forward a year from now, are you going to be selling anywhere this time of year?
Um, I'm hoping to have bolstered kind of our off farmers market sales. Ideally loving to not have to do a farmers market. I think that's kind of like the end goal, whether it's 3 years from now or 10 years from now. I don't know. It's just to get away from being dedicated to like every Saturday for the rest of my life. Like I still have kids, I
Yeah.
still have
Yeah.
a life that I want to live. And so, but also knowing that this market is April to December minus 3 weekends in October. Um, and it's like I either want to have built up enough sales to get me through, middle of December, January, February, March, or try to, I mean, ideally, I guess it would be that we're generating enough off the farm that we can like kind of button things up for a couple of months and take some time off, like our friends up north have to do. But I would love to get to do that down here and actually like take a break, go on a vacation, whatever that is.
Right. Not needing the sales and
Yeah.
being okay to do that. Um, is there a crop you're really excited to grow this year? Some people nerd out on vegetables. Is there anything you're like, I can't wait for this first blank to come out of the ground because you love it?
I mean, it was that first broccolini harvest. It was like knowing because I hype it so much. I always talk about it. Everyone was like anticipating it. I was like sending pictures of it, posting it on it, like it's coming. Look, here's the first florets, and so like to like pop that first one off and eat it and like, oh yes, it does taste as good as it should. That was definitely a big one. And then a kind of an odd one that also falls into that like unorthodox market garden one that I'm just excited because I've never grown it is like doing a sweet corn. um, I won't do a ton of it, but I've never personally grown corn, and like fresh sweet corn right off the ear is so stinking good. Even if I just grow enough for us to eat, I'm excited about that.
Right on. What's your go-to variety or cultivar of broccolini?
BC 1611 by Johnny's. It's I've grown a couple other ones like Waltham and DeChico, but man, and once again, it was like after working for a farmer who's been doing this for 30 years, and he's like, man, this one is awesome. And it's like, all right, I will never grow another broccolini ever again. It's like such a workhorse, and it tastes so good, and it never stops producing. Yeah, it's great.
How far into the heat can you push it?
It's really better planted in the like late summer and then harvested through the fall. Like we're still harvesting the stuff that got transplanted in the fall at Crystal
Yeah.
Organic. Um, but I'm hedging my bets that I'll be able to pick it into May, hopefully, and maybe with this third planting that I'm about to do, you know, it maybe push it into June. But it just depends on the weather and how hot it gets, and it kind of just peters out, stops really producing when it gets really hot.